Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. I hope you liked the part one of the season review. In the second part, we're going to continue the player ratings individually. We're going to start off with keepers and then finish off with attackers. And then we're going to look at the different coaches and the club as a whole. So first, let's get started with the goalkeepers. And for Napoli, it's a bit of a unique one because we have two goalkeepers that played a lot this season. Not many clubs in Europe can say the same thing. So we've obviously had both Meret and Ospina. Meret was the clear starter with Ancelotti. He gets a 7.5 because I really think that without him we would have had 10 points less this season. If we look back at some of the games, especially in the Ancelotti period, he saved us from defeats or kept us in a winning position, although that didn't happen much because of the team in general. And he really showed his maturity as a young goalkeeper because he didn't suffer the alternation between him and Ospina throughout the season, and when it really mattered, after Ospina's great game against Inter, he stepped it up in the Coppa Italia final against Juve and managed to be decisive on the penalty shootout. As for Ospina, he gets a 7. I think that he didn't save us as much as Meret did. Obviously, his biggest contribution for Napoli this season was the beautiful pass to Insigne before the assist to Dries Mertens on the Coppa Italia semi-final against Inter. And that pass really exemplifies why Gattuso was picking him over Meret most times. It's because he's better with his feet. But my personal opinion on this is that he's not world class with his feet. He's not world class with his saves. So overall, I would prefer Meret next season. I don't think Meret is actually that bad with his feet. And we've seen Ospina do quite a few mistakes. Maybe he could have done better with that Messi shot recently in the Champions League. And we lost the game against Lazio earlier in the season with him gifting Immobile a goal. So he's not the most reliable of keepers, and it does seem at times that he's missing those extra 5 centimeters that Meret has over him. As for Carnesis, he didn't get to play, which is unlucky. He's a good keeper, so obviously no score for him. Alright, now let's go on to the attackers. So let's start off with Mertens, 7.5 for him, 16 goals, 11 assists. That's 33% of all Napoli goals this season. So a really fundamental player for Napoli. He didn't have as good of a season as the previous one, but he concludes the season with a renewal on his contract, which shows his commitment to Napoli. Everyone is happy about that. And this season he managed to become Napoli's top scorer. So hats off to Dries Mertens. Alright, now let's go on to Insigne. And Insigne had very different first and second half of the season. So the second half, he was great, one of our best players. In my player ratings, I consistently gave him 7s or 8s. I thought his dedication was there. Everything that Napoli does seems to go through that left-hand side. But he is a bit sloppy. He does miss a lot of chances. He ends the season with 13 goals, a lot of them on penalties, and only 8 assists. So he's got to improve on that because he is capable of a lot more. But the main reason that he doesn't score higher than a 6.5 is because as captain of the team, he should have handled the Ancelotti period a lot better. If the players went on mutiny and we had the disaster that we had, it's also because Insigne wasn't enough of a leader. I don't think players like Marek Hamsik would have allowed that to happen. But it seems that with Gattuso and his new agent, he's found a new sense of maturity. So I don't think we'll have similar problems in the future, and I think that next year he'll be able to score a few more goals. Alright, now one of the biggest disappointments of the season, Milik. He scores a 5. If you guys have been watching Napoli Talk for a few videos now, then you know my opinions on Milik. I don't think he fits at all in this Napoli team. A fish out of the water. He helps out, 0 in defense. He doesn't play the ball well. He's bad at passing. And incredibly, he ends the season with 0 assists. I don't think any top striker in Europe has managed something like that. Because although your main function is to score, when you find yourself in and around the box, it's normal for you to assist at least a few times. But Milik's 0 assist stat really shows how he's not participating at all in Napoli's play. He has scored 14 goals this season, but they were really perfect balls for him or scrappy goals inside the box. And I think any average striker like a Pavoletti would have scored those same goals. Alright, now let's go to Callejon, and I'm going to give him a 6. Now, a lot of you guys might be saying that's actually quite high for Callejon because he's only scored 4 goals this season and he started most games. But at the end of the day, he does conclude with 10 assists, and I have to reward the man that he is and what he contributed. Let's not forget that he's been playing the last 2 or 3 months for free for Napoli. And in my opinion, when we rate players, the first thing we need to look at is the type of man that they are. And Callejon is an example for the team, and I'm sure that his dedication and his professionalism in every training session was helping every other player achieve their best. However, if we do look at what happened on the field this year, he has cost us a few games, especially maybe our qualification into the next round of the Champions League when he missed that absolute sitter in the first leg against Barcelona. In any case, it's time to move on from Callejon next year, but he will be missed. Moving on to Llorente, a 5.5, a lightning start to the season, goals against Lecce, goals against Liverpool, great start, and then he lost himself. I'm not really sure what happened with Llorente, and then when Gattuso came, he never even played a minute. So disappointing second half of the season for him, didn't contribute as much as he should have. So 5.5, I think this is his last season with Napoli. And on to another big disappointment in Napoli's season, Lozano, 5.5. He came to Napoli as the most expensive player, very high expectations, a man that Ancelotti wanted on the team, and he hasn't performed. He started off very well with a debut goal against Juve, but after that, maybe because he was playing out of position or because of everything going on around the club, he never really settled in. But I think that technically and tactically, he doesn't fit this Napoli team that well. He's a very good substitute player, great for impacts because he has a great energy and he runs at defenders, but oftentimes he gets the ball stuck between his feet, and he also doesn't help us start from the back as well as Insigne does. So for Lozano, I'd like to know your opinion below. Should we keep him? Should we not keep him? Does he deserve an extra year? I think we might as well keep him an extra year. You never know. He's already lost so much value that it doesn't really matter if we keep him on the bench for another year. So we might as well keep him and hope for the best. Up next is Politano, and he gets a 6.5. He started slowly, but that's because he hasn't played a lot with Inter in the first half of the season. But ever since lockdown, his performances have gotten better and better. He's growing in confidence, and he's also mixing up his game a little bit. He's cutting in and also going on his right foot. And I think that Di Lorenzo is able to play a bit better when he's around, because when he does cut into his left, it leaves some space for Di Lorenzo on the right to do his usual runs. And finally, we have Younes, who gets a 5. Now, Younes has scored very few goals and he hasn't played a lot, but there's probably a reason why 3 different coaches, Sarri, Ancelotti and Gattuso, have not given him a chance to start. He's obviously not showing he's at the same level as his teammates on the training ground. So for me, that's disappointing. He's had 3 different opportunities and he ends the season with a low score, and I think it's time for Napoli to sell him as well. Alright, now let's talk about the club, and in general, I'm going to give Napoli's season a 6.5, and that's because we finally won a trophy. That's not something that we take for granted here at Napoli. It was 6 years since a trophy, so no matter what's happened around the club, that deserves a 6.5. But let's go back to the start and let's see how we started off with Ancelotti. So with Ancelotti, we had 15 games and he was averaging 1.4 points per game. That means that with Ancelotti, we were going to finish with around 53 points this season. That is very, very mediocre. And the worst part is not really the statistics behind it, but how he managed to ruin the players in this team. He played Lozano as a striker when he's a winger. He played Fabian as a defensive midfielder when he should be scoring goals right outside the box. And he played Insigne on the left wing in midfield instead of closer to the box as well. And what's worse is that he didn't manage to control his own team with the whole mutiny incident. The only thing that saves him is that we managed to qualify past the group stages of the Champions League. I feel that any coach would have gotten us that, because apart from Liverpool, the other 2 teams in that group were well within Napoli's capabilities to beat. Now let's go on to Gattuso, and this is a bit interesting because he's managed 24 games in the Serie A for Napoli this season, but I'm only going to be considering the last 19, and that's when we managed to buy Demme and he started his first game, and that's because that's really when we could go and play the 4-3-3 with a defensive midfielder in his natural position, and it was the first signing that Gattuso made, and from that point onwards we managed 2.2 points per game, a huge improvement from Ancelotti. And to put it in context, Juventus, who won the Serie A, managed 2.4 points per game average this season. And let's not forget that the last 9 or so games, Napoli was playing without any real motivation. But apart from those statistics, Gattuso managed to get the team fired up again, and he's won us a Coppa Italia. And finally, high marks to De Laurentiis as well, because this season he spent a lot of money into this Napoli team. Players like Lozano for 45 million, Osimhen for 60, and others like Manolas for 36, Di Lorenzo for 8. He spent well over 150 million just on transfer fees for Napoli. And I think most importantly, he managed the whole mutiny situation quite well in my opinion with regards to the fines. We have to remember that these players can be a bit childish, and it's refreshing to see someone like De Laurentiis make them accountable for their actions and fine these players. But he showed he's understanding, fair and flexible, because he got rid of those fines, I think, after the Coppa Italia win, and he paid the players throughout the lockdown their full salary, which not all clubs did. So hats off to De Laurentiis, and he's showing real intent in the transfer market coming up. So I'm excited to see where he takes this club in the future. Guys, so overall, a very difficult year for us, but luckily we got that Coppa Italia win, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come. So if you've agreed with this review, then smash that like button and subscribe to Napoli Talk for more videos on Napoli, especially in this transfer period. And as always, Forza Napoli sempre!